4th of July. Didn't get to see you last week. We had a great time with our family, and you're headed out next week.
Excited about that, but I'll tell you, always, it's interesting how, once you see fireworks, you see fireworks, but it's just so nice every year. I don't know what there is about it, but I was as delighted in it this year as I had been years before. I just thought it was a neat deal, families coming together. We had chili dogs. I thought, it doesn't get better than this. This is good stuff.
So you all came to town or was in town for the 4th?
Well, the family lives here. The children and the grandchildren, and so.
But you got a daughter in Atlanta, right?
Right.
Does she ever make it up here? Or?
No, she was down in Atlanta with her crowd, and so they did their thing there, and then I had family in Oklahoma and Texas, and they did their thing. But everybody seemed to make it out okay. Nobody lost a finger. And that's always a great. But part of that too is in my family, the 4th of July was an exciting time. We would go to our grandparents in McAllister, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the kind of grandfather that told they had a fireworks stand right across the street from where he lived. And I didn't know till I was an adult that he told the owner, don't charge him. Whatever, you just keep a bill, and when it's over, I'll cover it. Now, he would give us a $5 bill, and we thought, and we would just get all these fireworks, but we didn't realize we were getting like $20 for the fireworks for $5. I was like, $5 went a long way during the 4th of July, but those were some of the best family times we ever had, and, throwing firecrackers at each other and blowing up stuff. Boy, it just didn't get better than that. And so there's a lot of just really old, great memories of the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And this was just another one for the books, here. And we went with the Pistolas kids to the fireworks, and it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, my mother's mother, my grandmother on the maternal side, she was born on the 4th of July, and I remember her telling stories when she was growing up. She always thought the festivities were for her.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, perspective is everything, and I love that. Obviously, it's for me that they're firing this off. I love that. That's a great sentiment right there.
Yeah, I love some of her stories. She actually, in fact, how she got to Oklahoma from Iowa was basically on a covered wagon.
Mine came from a covered wagon from Tennessee over to.
And she lived at that age up to the point where she was riding 747s and so forth. And, I guess if you look at our advances in technology, I was thinking about that the other day, the car I had in high school with the AM radio. And if someone had told me that, I would have an opportunity in my car to have my phone with me.
Right.
And on my phone, if I got lost, I didn't have to pull out one of those. I wonder if kids even know how to read a map today.
Yeah, well, and it's just, it's space invasion. It's Dick Tracy. If anybody would have ever told us, I think about it in high school, if somebody said, someday you'll carry your phone everywhere. There's no landline will be something of the past. I would have said, that's future thinking. That'll never happen. That's Buck Rogers. That's where that happened. But, we've lived long enough to see it, and it's just been amazing. I was noticing the other day, which just blew my mind, Rick, that 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, Apple came out. The first Apple phone.
iPhone, yeah.
Came. Whoa! I mean, think of that. That was only 10 years ago. In one decade. Just in telecommunications, what we've done is phenomenal. And another thing that blew my mind, that there is more computing skills in your phone than the astronaut who landed on the moon had. Now, boy, you talk about, on a wing and a prayer, getting to the moon and back. Wow, it's incredible when you see what they didn't have and what we do have now. And also what's kind of really wild about phones to me is that we struggle to do one thing, and you give it to a 5-year-old, and they take off and they can do 100 things. That just blows my mind. How in the world? But they totally initially just get it. They understand. It makes sense to them, and it's with all our knowledge, all our background, all our education. It's hard for us to just do simple things on the iPhone.
Well, and again, we know that children, when they're born with billions of brain cells that, if they're not used, they start dying away. That's why children can become great with languages at an early age. And I've always been amazed at friends who are bilingual, and a child could go back and forth between English and Spanish or whatever the native tongue is, and pick it up that quickly. They pick this type of technology. And you know, we're talking 2, 3-year-olds. You know, obviously they have to have language skills, but they have to have mechanical skills. But yeah, but what they absorb and what they can learn, and then as we get older, we know there's some truth that it is hard to teach it.
That's tough, buddy. It is tough to move that up a hill, I guarantee it. But it seems like children are going at it. But you know, and one of the things I noticed with all this that we're talking about today, the new technology. There are also new issues that come with this, that there are new complications, there are new coping issues that the new generation seems to have that the older generation just didn't have as much of.
Coping or lack of coping?
Well, right, yeah, you said it well, lack of coping. You know, there's just, and I can remember turning on my Facebook account and hearing this guy rant about how he didn't like service at a grocery store, and I immediately defriended him. I said, "Man, I can't stand listening to this." It so offended me. I mean, even today I can remember, and I can get that feeling back. You know. But that's where things have happened, you know, and it's another thing that kind of comes into this, I think it's a big deal, is change. You know, that we're talking about a change. And when we think back of when we went to school as a child, when we went to high school, when we went to college, you know, wow. I mean, we were in the dark ages in comparison to what they're doing today. You know, and I find myself saying, thank goodness I got out of school when I did. Woo, boy, I just made it across the wire. Because, boy, some of that stuff they get in today, I'm like, wow, this is above my pay rate right there, buddy. Ooh, too much.
Well, you know, as we talk about coping, you had mentioned before we got started today some ideas you have about anger. And I do think I don't know if it's just because, again, we have more instantaneous information available to us, or are people getting angry and not knowing how to handle that anger? Because we see, I remember when I first moved to Greenville 32 years ago, if there was a murder in this town, it would stay on the news for several days.
Right.
And now it's a 4-second blip. Down to this.
Well, that's the way, wait a minute, that's the way they start newscasts. You know, the first 3 things they talk about usually in any newscast in the evening is who got shot or who died in a car wreck. Man, I'm telling you, they're killing people left and right. And part of that is, again, and it's part of what we're talking about, you know, this area is becoming more metropolitan, and the traffic has increased, but so many of the drivers came from the country. You know, they went where most people drove around. There's only 1 or 2 cars in their area, and it was a pickup used at the farm. It wasn't a metropolitan go through, and so our roads are these 2-lane blacktops, and wow, that's just dangerous. It's just dangerous when you put, you know, get people together and they just don't have the skills. I think that one of the things that have happened to us is the pressure of living has increased, but our coping skills or training people to how to properly cope has not kept up with it. I think that what we've done is we've kind of had that idea of live and let live. You know, oh, that'll work. And we don't realize that what's happened is that catches up, and people wanting to say their piece or give their opinion or deal with things is inconsiderate of others and causes conflict. And that people, are coming to the place of, I'm not going to learn how to cope. I'm just going to learn how to fight. That's what I'm going to do. And so I think it makes it very, very hard for families to be together, for marriages to work, for relationships to survive over the long run. That we were talking about that before we came on, is the importance of the long run. Mm-hmm. Marriages for the long run, friendships for the long run, family for the long run. And I think back in the day, people understood if you're going to be in it for the long run, tough times. If you're going to be in it for the long run, things aren't going to go well. And you're going to have to slosh through a lot of emotional mud and wash yourself off and clean up and start again. And I find people today many times unwilling to do that. They don't feel like they have to. You know, if I get muddy in this, I'm out.
Well, exactly. It is unwilling. It's unwilling to try to understand and be empathetic with another person's position, because we're right, you're wrong, bottom line, instead of let's communicate about it, and let me see if I can understand where you're coming from, and let's see if I can help you understand where I'm coming from. And also with the idea that maybe there's not always going to be 100% agreement, but there can be collaboration. Okay, then what I need from you is this, and I hear you need this from me. And,
And collaborating takes a lot of energy and talent. The longer I've lived, the more I appreciate people who are great collaborators. There are some people, I look back and think, wow, that person was awesome. They went in to a tense situation. It could have blown up very easily, and they were able to work through it. Wow. I mean, that is just impressive to see. Somebody, that's a gift that some people have. I love that.
Well, the gift is also good communication skills. Reagan, if you remember when he first came into office, he called the Soviet Union the evil empire and was very adamant he was not going to have any communication with them.
Right.
Then he learned that no, that doesn't work. He would have to eventually start a form of communication. So that's where he and Gorbachev started having their summits, and eventually brought down the Berlin Wall and the Cold War. And I think we see this consistently through life, that when people are willing to communicate and talk and process, it's amazing what can be accomplished through that. But it's back when we maintain, again, I'm right, you're wrong mentality. And
right, and the old idea of King Arthur's court, might is right. Boy, I tell you, that is a hard position to move people off of. Is that they've started when they're little kids, that if I'm bigger, if I'm badder, if I'm able to jump in there, then I'm going to win. Mm-hmm. And if I have to intimidate people, so be it. That's what you got to do to get where you want to go. And we have an entire generation that grew up in that. And so that makes it, that's very difficult to let go of that. Because what you really have to do in that area is you have to let go of an old way and establish a new way of doing things. And boy, like you said a minute ago, old dogs and new tricks. Woo-wee, but it's hard. Because it's just so easy to blow up, flex your muscle, act out, and intimidate. You do not have to break there are some people that do not break a sweat intimidating people.
Yeah.
They just that's how they operate. That's how they do things. It's normal to them, and so that does not work well. But there are some people who look and say, "Wait a minute, the old way of doing things, the old way of communicating, the old way of processing is detrimental, and I can't get from A to B doing that. If I have to change the process, I have to change the paradigm to get to where I want to go." And I think that there are people out there today who are teaching that, who are saying this is the way to go. The old way, there's nothing wrong with the old way. I love that. I think that's a change there. It used to be something's wrong, we need to make it right. I think what they're saying is it's not that it was wrong, it was right for the time, but times have changed. And so that won't work the same way. So you're going to have to go in and rethink it and redo it. And that's an awesome but very hard skill to relearn. But and so that's kind of a thing where this is one of those lingering issues of past generations that we still struggle to let go of. We're back on the prairie. We're back where, it's just us and, the caveman where you drag a woman, hit him over the head, drag him by the hair kind of mindset. It is so much part of how things operate. And we are slow to let that go. And so that's why here in South Carolina, we have one of the highest ratings of domestic violence of any other state in the union. It's hard to let go of that. Hard to let go of that destructive anger. And some of the things family members do and say, marital couples do and say, is criminal. It's not only tragic, it's criminal.
Well, you worked with domestic violence, and what did you work, or how did you work with your clients and train them on how to recognize and control their anger, and what were some of the skill sets you shared with them?
Well, Rick, probably the number one issue to get them to shift was cost, to really talk about cost, to bring it from maybe 15th on the list to number one on the list. Let's talk about, because if you just tell people don't do that, it's like saying don't do drugs. That's great that you want to do drugs. And everybody, I never met, Rick, anybody who did not have what they believed was a great excuse for acting out. It wasn't like I grew up acting out, so I act out, or I'm a bad person, so I acted out. No, it was they. There was always right. They did.
If they did not do this,
they did not do that. They instigated it.
Yeah.
They did certain things that got me into it. Was one of the things I heard over and over again. And a minimizing of cost. Oh, well, I guess I got caught. Oh, well, I guess that's what happened. Oh, well, it's a woman's world today. So you heard that kind of stuff. And so one of the things I worked very hard on was let's get off the excuses, because we know everybody here is innocent. So we started with that. We're going to go with you guys all believe you're innocent, and you all have a good reason. But let's talk about monetarily and your time and your energy, the cost of what it's cost you to do this. Because you're going to get out of here, and you're still going to be able to do it. You're still going to be able to show out. You're still going to be able to do cruddy stuff. And just telling you not to do it, and good people don't do it, and this is the right thing to do, I did not see that stopping people at all. They would go, yeah, they'd agree, they'd be nice, they'd sit in their chair and everything, and then, 6 months later, they were back out, they were just as bad as they were when they come in. versus going in and saying, how much money did you spend going through treatment? How much energy did it take for you to do this? Was it easy or hard to get up every week and do this? And did you not have anything better to do with your time than come here and listen to this? And so we really emphasize the cost of it. What's it cost? What did it cost for you? You lost it for probably a second, maybe 5 seconds. It wasn't like a day of acting out. It was a moment of acting out. And then the police were called and it was all over. And I said, let's talk about what that's going to cost you. Or how many times have you, as a therapist, heard people say, people said to me when I was young, when I was in grade school, my parents said or did this. And 50 years later, they're still carrying them. Mm-hmm. That's an incredible cost. And my thought is, I bet their parents never thought that 50 years later they'd still be talking about it. Well, but that's what happened.
Right. Not even with the intention that it was going to create that. But, yeah, if we don't heal those emotional wounds from childhood, they go with us.
Right. And that's an investment. And that's an awareness, Rick. I think it's very important, because I don't hear parents intentionally looking to emotionally wound anyone.
No, I don't think anybody becomes a parent and say, let me see how morally I can screw up this child.
Yeah, what's it going to take to put them into treatment or put them into the prison system? I don't hear that.
But I do share with my clients, that's a great example because, I share with my clients, that if you're a male and you grow up with an emotionally distant father who was never one you could please, but men always are looking to get favor of their dads.
Right.
And you're the kid that comes with 4 A's and B, and he gets you about why the B.
Yeah, what's the B? Where did the A go?
You're starting the football team, first string. You catch 4 touchdowns, but you drop 1, and after the game, he gets you on. And so guess what? This same guy gets married, and one day his wife says, "Hon, today was Wednesday. You forgot to take out the trash."
Woo!
And he blows up at her. He's not blowing up at her. He's blowing up at that emotional wound that hasn't been healed, always being told or always hearing, "I'm not good enough." And so he hears his dad in that voice, and then she says, "Whoa, what is this all about? We're not even
Yeah.
But until he becomes aware that that's what it is that reactivity to that emotional wound of his dad not ever being pleased by his performance. So then that would say things to him that are even critical become heard critically to him.
Right, and I think one of the things that is an awareness state is realizing when somebody has done something that might adequately require a 3 response, and they're getting an 8 response out of 0 to 10. That kind of dynamics is what I see. Then wait a minute, between 3 and 8, well, what has increased? What's caused that? Because this incident, this person didn't cause that. And getting people to ask that question. What rose the gap? What made things go up that high? And being willing to ask that during the calm moments. I think it's very hard, that old statement, it's very hard to remember to drain the swamp when you're high knee deep in alligators.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, when you're angry, and I told people all the time in treatment, that's too late. That's what that is. It's too late. When you get angry, it's too late. You've already stepped over the line. This is something you've got to do way ahead of time, that you've got to deal with and process way ahead of time. And believe in your heart it's going to happen. At some point, something's going to happen. It's going to fling on you. People are going to say things. People are going to do things. You're going to be in situations. You're going to feel helpless and hopeless. And your first knee-jerk reaction is to act out. And then, number 1, did you give yourself time to process that before? And number 2, do you immediately go to, I have permission within myself to act as poorly as I want to, but what's it going to cost me? What is it going to cost me if I do this? You know, and it's even, here's kind of the back door, is love. You know, I can fall in love with anybody. And yes, and the truth is, yes, you can. You can. But what people don't get is the cost of falling in love. You know, love is not free. You know, and so people, there are some people, I have seen this more as I grow old. I used to think it was weird that people married people they went to church with, or married somebody in the neighborhood, or married somebody they went to school with. I went, really, man? I want to marry somebody in a different country. I want to go out there, and that is the cost. Could I do that? Yes, I could do that. Is that going to be free? No, that's not going to be free. Is it going to make it harder for me to be married and to be in a family? And the answer is, you better believe that you are making life harder. And so I see a lot of people making decisions about who they love, who they're around, and that 20 years later, when I ask them, well, did you think that was a good decision? I seldom hear people go, yeah, that was a great decision. I'm glad I really stepped out and went after that person. I'm like, wow, the cost of that was astronomical. You know, boy, I tell you, that was a path that I had no clue that it was going to cost me so much.
And, you know, it's also important that we understand what the primary emotion is that drives that secondary emotion of anger. Bev and Tom Rogers up in Charlotte, who wrote the book Soul Healing Love, they use the acronym GIFT. And, you know, when we get angry, you know, is it guilt that's driving that anger? Is it a feeling of inferiority? Is it a feeling of fear, or is it a feeling of trauma? But once we start looking at, you know, can I identify what is making me angry, then we have an awareness, which helps us back to the road of understanding. Yeah, that every time you do that, that makes me feel inferior. When you tell me how to drive, or, you know, if I say I'm going to go left, you say no, it's to the right. Yes, I get angry because it makes me feel inferior, or, you know, or talk about past traumas. Every time I hear you say something like that, all I do is hear my dad saying, I'm not good enough. Right. Okay, now I recognize where that reactivity is coming from.
Right, and I think I love the word you're using there, awareness. That is powerful. You know, that I do not see people who are highly aware really angry. I don't see that very much. What I see is people who are, you know, keep their head in the sand, and something hits them left to center, and they just show out, and they back people away. And so their awareness is minimal. Minimally aware people, highly angry people. Highly aware people, minimally angry is the combination I've seen. And I love that acronym. That's a good one you know, but again, that's only good if you're doing it before you get angry.
Right.
You know, that you're processing, that you're making yourself aware, that you have a different point of reference. Because like you said, if I'm ruminating over something that happened to me when I'm 10 years old, and I don't let go of that, and somebody mentions something in the car, all that crud from the past that's unresolved, it's coming out. It's coming out. I'm just blowing up.
Well, emotional wounds are no different than physical wounds. If you break a bone and it's not set properly, what happens every time you bump it? It hurts. Emotional wounds are the same way. If we don't heal the emotional wounds, every time it bumps, it's going to hurt. But guess what? We can cure emotional wounds just as we can, or heal emotional wounds just as we can heal physical wounds. And that does, you know, it takes time, it takes proper training, and it takes awareness again after going back.
Yeah, and I'm reminded when you say that, Rick, I broke my collarbone playing football when I was younger. And the doctor said to me, well, I'll tell you this, Mr. Rhodes. He said, you'll never break that bone where you broke it. Because the calcium, number one, it didn't go together, just side. They went kind of next to each other, and so it built calcium around and around and around, and so that place where it broke is stronger than the rest of the bone. The bone might, I'm not saying the bone might not break again, but it won't break there. And I think that's the same way with anger. I think when people are aware, when people are willing to step out while they're not angry and become aware and process that, it's like you're talking about with a broken bone. They're able to heal that, they're able to strengthen that, and go on from there.
And people think, I see a lot of times where people think it's wrong to get angry, and yet, scriptures teach us be angry but do not sin, and so we, once they recognize that anger is a legitimate emotion, but the do not sin means how do we handle that anger? And sometimes it's as simple as just telling someone that really makes me angry when you say this or do this, and it's okay to communicate, but I think if we learn to communicate that we are angry, then we have an opportunity to process and release it. It's when we don't process and release, it's when it
just builds up.
And that it shows up in the physical, or, again, before we talked, you were saying that sometimes things are said within families or within marriages that you wouldn't say to your worst enemy. But, because, as you said, it builds up, and unless we have a way to release that steam, then all boilers are going to blow up at one time or another. But if you can release it, then we have, and that means, again, it takes two people to understand that it's okay. I want you to tell me if you're angry or whatever emotion is you have, don't hold on to it, but release it.
Right, and I think part of what you're talking about there is investing in the process of building relationships. I think that's why so many children are so deeply wounded, that people say things, but they've not built a relationship. It's just like, I remember a great statement right here, is, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. Now, you don't hear that as much today, but boy, when we were growing up, that was said a lot. I brought you in, I can take you out. Don't you think you can be smart with me? And, it's like, but then there's other people who build a relationship of communication, build a relationship of awareness, build a relationship of connectedness. And so it's not like crud didn't happen to them. Crud did. And when they were young, there were cruddy moments, just like there were cruddy moments in other people's lives. But what they had infused in that family or that marriage or that relationship was the process of healing, the process of communicating the healing process. And because of that, people come out less wounded. Mm-hmm. But I love Joyce Myers, who said, wounded people wound people. And I thought, wow, simple but profound. Simple but profound. She really hit the nail on the head there to say that. It's like, you do not see healthy people wounding people. You don't see happy people wounding people. You don't see people who are aware wounding people. No, that doesn't happen. It's people that are, think they know it all, have no awareness, and are bullies. That is what you see. And the other side of that is they don't realize how difficult and costly they're making their life.
Yeah.
Living as an angry person is very costly. Being uncommunicative with other people is very costly to people.
Well, you said it in one of our sessions. Yeah, anger is like having poison and taking it and thinking it's going to hurt the other
Yeah,
person. You know?
really. I'll show you. Yeah. Oh Lord. And you know, and here's another thing. People want other people to be clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
And other people believe that person's thinking this. And what they don't get is 9 times out of 10, that person not only isn't thinking it, they're not thinking about you. They got their own life. They got their own stuff. That you haven't even crossed their mind. But I remember the story of 2 Oriental monks that were going down the road, and they meet a princess on the side of the road. And so the old monk sees she's stuck and needs to get over a little wet area. So he lays down his cloak and he helps her across, and they keep going down the road. And then the young monk blows up and says, I cannot believe you picked that princess up and moved her to the other side and helped her to the other side of the road. And the old monk said, well, yes, I did pick her up from one side of the road to the other. But you, young monk, have carried that princess for miles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do. We just get into stuff, and we ruminate about stuff, and we improperly process it, and we assume, and I love the acronym of assume, making an ass out of you and me, is exactly what people do. And then things get so out of hand. It's very sad.
And going back to the idea that, you know, we may not always be right, that it's okay to process and say, you know what, I was wrong in this situation, and I'll acknowledge it again. You know, it's back to that story of the U.S. naval ship was coming up and saw light ahead of it and gave out a command saying, this is the USS Destroyer Montgomery, and I need you to turn 30 degrees or we'll collide. And he comes back and says, no, I cannot turn 30 degrees. And he says, you don't understand, I'm the U.S. naval ship, and you need to turn 30 degrees or we'll collide. He says, I cannot turn 30 degrees. And he says, one more last warning, this is a U.S. naval ship. You need to turn 30 degrees or we're going to collide. He says, well, this is the lighthouse.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And when it's all said and done, you might be a mighty ship, but you're gonna wreck if you don't move. Because I cannot move.
If you don't
That's
understand
perfect.
the other position,
I love that. I love that story. That's a good one. So it's important. It's important for people to jack down. There you go. To dial it down a little bit. And we here on the porch want people out there to know it is tough to communicate. It takes a lot of energy. It takes an investment to work with people. We are not trying to tell you here today, easy thing to do, go communicate with your kids. Easy thing to do, communicate with the people you work with. Easy thing to do, communicate with who you're married to. It is hard. It is very hard. And you have to, we want you to hear today, you have to make an investment. You have to invest in your kids. You have to invest in your work. You have to invest in your marriage. If you want to see great fruit come from that, you have to work through it. It's an investment.
And that's the right word, because investment means there's a return. It's not an expense or it's not a cost, it's an investment, because you do get a return from it versus thinking it's a cost of time or energy. And that's not the case. And we have to understand, sometimes it's a lot easier just to think if you sweep something under the rug. But you know what? That mound just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we keep tripping over it.
Amen. Amen.
It's not till we actually clean it out.
Things don't magically go away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, It'll be nice. The old, we'll ignore it, it'll go away.
Mm-hmm.
No, if untreated, it will fester, and it will get more inflamed, and it can kill you. You know, how many stories, I mean, that kind of made Shakespeare's life of talking about all the infections that happen between family members and how they acted out as they grew up based on an early infection of relationships. He was a genius at conveying that through his stories.
So listening then is the last part of it. We think, again, I hear a lot that, there's a lot of perception that communication is what we say, but actually communication is very little of what we say. Communication is what do we hear and do we understand what we're hearing.
There's the big word, Rick. There's the big word. Are we listening for understanding?
Mm-hmm.
People can tell. People can tell if you give a damn. They know. And if they pick up, you don't, that you are just pacifying them, then you may have been, your objective may have been to do away with anger, but in fact what's going to happen is you're going to increase anger. You know, I love that saying, is it listen not to be understood, but listen to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I think, wow. And the people that I've seen that I admire are awesome listeners. It's just amazing how well they listen. And I was hearing a thing the other day that said, make an effort to be the last one in a conversation to speak. If you go through a whole conversation and say very little, but maybe a sentence at the end, that will be more important than someone who has gone on and on and on and on and on. You will not remember that. It will not make a difference. It is just taking up space. But it's that last moment. And think before you speak. We were taught that when we were little. Think before you speak. Wow, that is so, even today, I think an incredibly powerful thought to think before you speak.
And then as we go full circle, though, that brings us back to the concept of the technology we have now, where we do see a lot of quote-unquote talking without a lot of thinking that goes out there.
Oh, man.
And
I think that's great. I think I have looked at that. I have, one of the things that has helped me is Facebook. Is that Facebook, if you put something 6 years ago on Facebook, it'll come back and ask if you want to repost it. Mm-hmm. And I love that because it causes me, the first thing I want to think about, where was I emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically? Where was I 6 years ago? And I was in a whole different life, in a whole different place, in a whole different, way of living back then. And then I want to read what I wrote, and I want to say, does this still hold true? Is this something that I still believe? And sometimes I go, man, I don't know what I was thinking, man. That's some cruddy stuff. And I'll just delete it. And I say, okay, well, I've learned something because pride wants me to jump in and say, if I said it 10 years ago, then my grandfather shows up. If I said it then, I'm saying it now. I mean it then, I mean it now. I'm a man of my word. It's like, wow, where's the education in that?
And again, that's a sign of both social and emotional maturity, is that we can look back and say, I didn't have it right, or I don't think I had it right back then, and I have grown a better understanding of whatever the issue or situation is. And I fear for people that don't give themselves the opportunity to. And going back to Shakespeare, that's he made it very clear: a life not examined is not worth living. And we have to be examining our lives on a daily basis and asking ourselves, you know, what are the adjustments I have to make in order to be better tomorrow than I was today?
Yeah, and there's no. I think it's important to embrace from the start, Rick. There's no such thing as perfect. Except if you go to Webster under P, you'll find perfect. But you're never going to find perfect in anything you do, anything you say, anything someone else does or says. Perfect doesn't exist. And I see people just go, and that's one of the things I think has increased, is the journey or the desire for perfection and how it drives people insane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got to have a perfect house. I got to have perfect children. I got to have a perfect this. I got to have a perfect that. And I'm thinking, whew, what a setup for insanity. I mean, they are going to be and are miserable people. Because there's no such thing as perfection. So it's those people who celebrate but don't ruminate over any event in their life. This happened. It wasn't perfect, but it was my people. It was my place, and I'm glad I'm here and now. And I think again a piece of that is how we frame it. It's like you and I were talking about when I first came in, vacations. I have seen people who have gone on, to Italy, to the villas, to cruises, and come back. Oh, it was terrible. Yeah. It was terrible. It was terrible. And I thought, wow, they spent thousands of dollars to be miserable. And some people said, yeah, we went out to our backyard, and we pitched a tent, we fried hot dogs, and we had the best time. And we really enjoyed that, and I'll always remember that. And I said, well, that probably cost them all together about $5. So it's not how much you spend. It's not how elaborate it is. It's how connected you are.
Exactly. And setting up the expectations, as we watch what's happening within government today, I go back to thinking about John Kennedy and the Bay of Pigs. And, those that are familiar with history know that the Bay of Pigs was actually thought out by the Eisenhower administration, and it was actually Richard Nixon as vice president who put the Bay of Pigs in motion. But it happened under Kennedy's administration when he first got into office, and he very well could have made it clear at the time when it was a fiasco that this was all planned long before I got here. But no, he took responsibility. He said it happened on my watch, and I take responsibility for what happened. And
there's a lot to be said about that. The word I think about, Rick, is that's integrity.
Integrity, yep.
That's integrity. I didn't plan it. I didn't start it. It wasn't my idea, but it happened under my watch. So I'm going to hold myself accountable for it. And I'm going to let you hold me accountable for it. Woo-wee! You see, and what we're seeing more of, if anything like that happens, first thing to do is blame others.
Oh, yeah.
Don't take any accountability. Don't take any responsibility. And so because of that, people don't learn. That what we see is a reoccurrence of the same bad crud done over and over again.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure today they'll go all the way back and blame George Washington or something.
Oh, George, he shouldn't have done that. Yeah, oh, gosh, it's tough. It's doing the best you can and stepping up and taking ownership.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge piece of the puzzle for people's lives. If I take ownership for my marriage, if I take ownership for my family, if I take ownership for my work, I'm going to produce a different result just by that change of thought. I'm not going to blow this off on something else. I'm going to not say I didn't have any other choice. I'm not going to say I couldn't do anything else. It was somebody else. I'm going to say, just like you're saying about with Kennedy, I didn't start this stuff, but I take account of this stuff. I let you hold me accountable for this stuff. There's a lot of power in that.
And as we get ready to close up, going back and putting this all into a bundle is, we have to communicate. We have to understand that it's okay to be angry, but we have to also know it has to be shared, or we have to be able to process that anger. We have to understand where the anger is coming from. We have to listen. Listening in itself is a major key in successful relationships of any type, whether it be employer-employee, husband-wife, families, friends, and with the idea that we are listening, as you said, for understanding. A lot of times when we are in a argumentative or conflict, our listening is not for understanding, it's for our rebuttal as to what's going to be said. And so we're still not hearing what the other person's got to say. So reflective listening is nothing more than taking the time after a person's spoken just to reflect back what you heard them say. They can either say, yes, you got it, or no, I didn't say that. And that it all is actions that can be taken to make a person, again, stronger emotionally, spiritually, physically. Well, physically too, because people don't understand what anger that is held in, what it does to the human body.
Wow. Yes, so much sickness, physical sickness, from holding in stuff.
Everything from headaches to cardiovascular problems to ulcers to and so just learning how to process and release again in a holistic manner is a healing process. And what you shared is taking that opportunity to be responsible for your own actions and learning from them. Don't hold on to them. Learn from them, and then just do better each day.
Right. And I think people need to hear it is your job to provide an opportunity for change. To provide an opportunity for change.
Mm-hmm.
It is not your job to change anybody.
Because you can't.
But people, man, let me tell you, people get into bad situations. People stay into bad situations. I gotta stay in here till I get into change. I gotta stay here to make things right. Wow. No, you need to take care of yourself. Sometimes the best answer, sadly, is run.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best answer. It's not safe to stay somewhere. Many people, in their effort to change other people, have died, and that because they don't get. If you stay in here long enough, and people wind up long enough, they can take your life.
Yeah, and again, just accept the fact that people only change when they're motivated to change, and we cannot create that motivation. Meaning, we cannot try to inspire, but we are not going to be the ones that are going to change people who do not want to change. It's when they become motivated, and the motivation, we don't know what that motivation is. For some people, it is hitting the rock bottom. For some people, it is getting that sense of inspiration or seeing the damage they're doing. But we have to, if anything, if we're going to help somebody change, we've got to, help them understand what's going to motivate them to change. That's going to, again, back to what you were saying about domestic violence and so forth. People are not going to change if they're not motivated to change. So
Right.
You can't say, please change and be a good boy or a good girl.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Right. You want to make sure you set up an environment for change, but more than anything, you need to protect yourself. You need to look after yourself. And if people refuse to respect that, run.
Yeah.
If people are not willing to learn new directions, run. Do not stay in some place where everything is just escalating. In the long run, you're already the victim, and you're only going to become more of the victim.
And I think it's a good area. You're on vacation next week, so we'll run one of our best of.
All right.
In fact, maybe this
All
one.
of them are best.
Yeah, maybe this one. I think this is a good one, and for those that didn't get a chance to see it, we'll give it another time. But when you get back, I think examine the concept of toxic people, toxic places. We as a culture don't understand that there are times that we have to separate ourselves from that which is poisonous to us. Now, again, you're an emotionally, intellectually sound person would not keep poison around in the house knowing that it's going to harm them unopened, and they would separate themselves from it. But we have to sometimes learn that something we have to do in our own life.
Amen.
In order to protect ourselves. And we can talk a little bit about boundaries, Cloud & Townsend's work.
Beautiful.
It's not to.
Yeah, if you're looking for hard, and good summer reading, Boundaries by Cloud & Townsend is awesome. Boy, those people hit the nail on the head with that book.
Yeah, so I'll put that one out there when I update this a little bit. I'll put the book Soul Healing Love by the Rogers out there so people can look at that too. And then when you get back, we'll pick up there with the concept of toxic people, toxic environment, boundaries, and how do we apply those to our lives to protect us. Because that's why we put fences up. It's not to keep us from able to go out and explore. It's to keep those things that are dangerous to us from coming in.
I love it.
All right, so have a great vacation.
I will.
And we'll be
Good
back.
Lord willing, the creek don't rise.
And so we'll talk about those topics when we get back in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.